Did you hear about, you were on vacation? By the way, when you were on, did you get sick on the plane?
No.
You were fine.
I was fine. I picked a seat right in the middle.
Oh, does that help?
Less inertia.
I've never heard that before.
It's true.
Incredible. We have an astrophysicist here who is explaining to us where on the plane there's actually less inertia and is better for
Motion sickness.
For motion sickness. Well, I'm glad to hear it because I know that can certainly ruin a trip, and especially with the new regulations. The last thing we want is you having to go into the bathroom for an hour before landing, coming out and being tackled by a federal air marshal for being suspicious.
Right.
And I know that you don't usually strap anything to your underwear, so that you were probably clear on that.
I think I was.
Not a funny story, though. Andrew Joseph Stack flying a small plane into Building 1 of the Echelon office complex in Austin, Texas, killing himself and IRS manager Vernon Hunter. The fact that he's an IRS manager became important. Did you hear about this while you were gone?
Yes.
So, number one, this guy, Andrew Joseph Stack, also set his own house on fire earlier that morning, and he left a note that, for all intents and purposes, is a suicide note, talking about his displeasure with government, the bailout politicians, large corporations. He even specifically named GM and Enron, drug and health insurance companies, unions, the Catholic Church, and it also mentions a long-running feud with the IRS. I don't know the status of whether he owed back taxes or what the deal was, but he specifically mentioned the IRS, and it was not by chance that he crashed his plane into an IRS building. A report said this was not linked to any organized international terrorist group. In an interview with ABC's Good Morning America, and this is where it gets really bizarre, Joe Stack's adult daughter, whose name is Samantha Bell, who lives in Norway, stated that she considered her father to be a hero for what he did because she felt that now people might listen. Listen to what, is my question. She said, I don't agree with his specific actions involving the plane crash, but that she did agree with his actions about speaking out against injustice and the government. Of course, afterwards, Bell retracted aspects of her statement, saying her father was not a hero, adding, "We are mourning for Vernon Hunter, the IRS guy who was killed." A bizarre story. News networks going back and forth about whether this is or isn't terrorism. I don't know whether we necessarily need to decide on that right now, but what we need to remember is that generally, it's not always the Middle Eastern-looking guy who wants to have a plane crash. Abdul Muttalib, the underwear bomber, Andrew Joseph Stack. I understand very different circumstances. Of course, this also a private plane. Scott Brown, I got a little bit of a boost towards new Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown when he voted for the jobs bill last week, early this week, saying, I'm not here to be a partisan guy. I'm going to do what makes sense. And in this case, it made sense to vote for the president's job bill. At the same time, he went on the Neil Cavuto show and almost pimped his own election in connection with the Austin plane crash by saying, well, people are clearly frustrated with what's going on. Take a listen.
In all seriousness, Senator, this happens on a day we have this crazy plane crash in Austin, Texas, and we have a guy who's just ranting at the system, ranting at the IRS, ranting at the government, the need for health care, not the need for unions getting special care. I mean, really crazy stuff. I'd just be curious your reaction to all that.
Well, it's certainly tragic, and I feel for the families, obviously, that are being affected by it. And I don't know if it's related, but I can just sense, not only in my election, but since being here in Washington, people are frustrated. They want transparency. They want their elected officials to be accountable and open and talk about the things that are affecting their daily lives. So I'm not sure if there's a connection. I certainly hope not, but we need to do things better.
He hopes there is not a connection. If he really hopes there is not a connection with his to people are frustrated, then why even bring it up? Right? If he really thinks that there might be one but hopes there isn't, don't start putting it in people's minds.
Right. Well, first of all, this guy, clearly a lunatic, wrote a note that he was frustrated.
Right.
So that was his reason. But obviously a lunatic. So what is Scott Brown saying? Vote for me, vote for people who are going to change things, vote for the Republicans, and, less people will fly their planes into buildings?
Because the status quo is frustration that leads people to set their house on fire, go to an airport after learning to fly, take off, and find and crash into one of the 15 agencies that you list that you're frustrated
That's
with.
what people do when they're frustrated with government.
Clearly. Well, again, I don't know that it's an irresponsible comment, but by Scott Brown, honestly, when people make comments and they're sarcastic or they're goofing on something, I think it's hilarious. But when Scott Brown seriously says on Fox News that this type of thing is connected with political frustration, it seems a little bit, not irresponsible, but it seems a little dumb. Let's figure out a better way to go on the Neil Cavuto show. There's plenty of Republican talking points that Scott Brown and Neil Cavuto can throw back and forth at themselves in a softball interview. He doesn't necessarily need to throw in the deliberate plane crash. This episode of Midweek Politics has been made possible in part by Just Coffee Cooperative, fair trade coffee from around the world roasted daily at justcoffee.coop.